There is not a soul in the world that I can talk to about this. I don't know if I need advice, pep talk, or what. I use my main account for memes and that nonsense, but I did this spread because I'm going crazy trying to cope.
Don't forget to subscribe, like and leave your comment. It doesn't cost you anything and you help me a lot.
Life has pushed me to the limit and I am struggling to find my wholeness. However, I wonder what are really the right things to do, say, and think. I guess to begin with I have to explain why I'm writing this in a hospital room. Yesterday around 7:30 a.m. my wife and I had an accident. I left with only a few cuts and bruises. Mari, my wife, suffered a crushed shoulder, broken collarbones, 3 broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. They hope that she will fully recover, but for now they have her quite sedated. Having to type this on a phone is a daunting task, but right now I have time to move on, though I'm not sure I have the will to do so. I wouldn't be posting on this sub if things were perfect in our marriage, obviously. It's just that I could never imagine my wife cheating in any way. My heart is broken, I feel incomplete, like a part of me is missing. And the saddest thing of all is that that part is sitting a meter away from me. I had felt that we drifted apart in the last 3 months, but I couldn't find a reason. We are both 34 years old. Mari and I have known each other since we were children. We started dating in high school and even college. She's the only woman I've ever done anything of a physical nature with, and until recently she could say the same. We got married a year after college and had our first child, Michael. 3 years after our son, Carrie, was born, our daughter began a life in which I tried to pamper her to the fullest. I love my children more than my own life. If it wasn't for them, I'm not sure I could be here right now. My children were not involved in the accident, thank God. They spent the night at my parents' house. We were due to fly to Florida for a cruise yesterday afternoon. However, it is obvious that everything was cancelled. But my wife decided to go out with her best friend, even though I insisted that she come home and not drive through the snow. She swore that she and her friend Rebecca were only going to have a couple of drinks, as they wouldn't see each other for a week. I went to bed and slept like a baby until 5 in the morning. I got up and looked out the window to see that my wife's car wasn't ahead, but we had several more inches of snow falling on us. I assumed that Mari and Bika had gotten too drunk and stayed at her house. I put on some clothes and got into my SUV. Before leaving, I sent a message to Mari to tell her not to drive, that it was too dangerous and that I better go look for her. He was left unread. I can't guess how many times I've wondered what would have happened if she'd read that message. Would I still live a lie? Would he still have that feeling? But I wouldn't be in the absolute misery I find myself in now. I arrived at Bika's house and parked in front of his apartment. I looked at the message again and I hadn't read it yet. I actually hoped Mari would read it and be ready by the time I arrived, but I resigned myself to the fact that I would have to go in and wake her up. The door was open, so I went in and looked at the TV room to my right. There was no one passed out on the couch. Bika's bedroom was downstairs and I didn't want to wake her up, so I went upstairs to her guest room and opened the door. Then, my life ended. I remember walking into the room and seeing 2 heads poking out from between the sheets. I remember leaning over to pull the comforter towards me. I even remember seeing my wife resting her head on a guy's shirtless chest. The next thing I remember is Bika, Mari, and a naked guy I've never seen trying to get rid of me. I'd probably be in jail right now if they hadn't, but I honestly don't remember anything, so right or wrong, I don't really feel bad about it. My wife, on the other hand, well, that changes minute by minute these days. When I came to, the guy said he would take his friend to the hospital. Mari cried mucus while Rebecca and I screamed. I told her and my wife that I was leaving and that she had 5 minutes to be in my car or not to bother coming home. She was there in 3. It's really not a good idea to be angry and driving in the snow, even with 4-wheel drive. But it was another vehicle that veered into our lane and forced us through a guardrail. That's what caused Mari's injuries. Even though the car rolled over, thanks to the airbags we were able to survive. The kids don't even know we had an accident. I haven't called anyone. I probably should have, but this wasn't just an accident. My life has been shattered and I am trying to measure the damage before I bring others into this problem. I'm numb and still hurting like hell, and not just because of the accident. I feel like I don't even know the person lying in that hospital bed. I want to ask you so many bad questions, but I really don't want to know any of the answers. It's obvious that he doesn't love me anymore. No one with a soul could cheat on someone they love, so I have to ask if they ever loved me. And now that he has deceived me, would I want him to love me again if that were possible? I don't know when he first cheated on me, but in my mind, the instant he did it for the first time, our marriage ended. The votes were broken. She ended our marriage and we are no longer husband and wife. I don't need a divorce lawyer to annul my marriage. She has already done so, therefore I am no longer obligated to fulfill the vows I gave her. A big part of me wants to get out of this room. I want to call his parents and tell them what he did and what happened. And then let her know that she is his problem again after all these years. We said through thick and thin, and I meant it, but we are not married anymore. Part of me wants to leave her a note and tell her that the worst is over after she ended our relationship. The only thing keeping me in this damn room is my kids. I'm so looking forward to seeing them right now, but I have some scratches on my face and neck. They would know something happened to me if they saw me. As much as I feel like my wife has desecrated herself and our family, my children need her. I thought I had a life partner. And as horrible as it ended up being, my kids need a mom in their life. We are going to have several talks in which I am not trained and I will not know where to start. There will be wounds that will need kissing instead of being told to leave. I'm a good father, but I can't be a mother too. Please, someone help me. How can I sit here and look over someone who has stabbed me in the back so cruelly? Should I call your parents to come over? What do I tell them? I really don't want to be here, especially with his parents. If I don't tell them what I've done, they'll know I'm angry. In God's name, what can I say to my children? Yes, I can tell you that we had an accident, but I'm not one to fake emotions. Obviously, my wife does it with ease. But when I really hate someone, you can see it on my face. Do they know that I am angry with their mother? How the hell did my life come to this? I know I have to go see a lawyer. That is already quite clear to me. How do I do this? Update. I decided to stay one more night in the hospital room. With Mari sedated and the lights off. I lay on the couch looking at the ceiling and listening to the medical machines. I wondered how the hell my life had gotten to this point. Part of me felt like I was giving him undeserved mercy. Because of the fact that they are in the same room as her. But another part of me still wants it. I didn't want to feel that love. In fact, I felt weak for having positive feelings towards her. Time and time again in my mind I realized that there was no way to fix things as before. It was as if a natural disaster had taken away the life we had built and completely destroyed it. I cried. I cried a lot. I realized that a big part of my life was over. That was a time of great importance now. The next morning when the nurse came into the room to draw my blood, I apologized. When Mari woke up, she saw me leave through the door and called me. But I pretended I hadn't heard it. I went to have breakfast. I didn't have much of an appetite since I found out. I tried to kill time by eating and looking at my phone. There was a message from Becca asking where Mari was that I left unread. I decided that it's 7 a.m. It was late enough to knock on his parents' door. His father always got up early. I planned to talk to him first, and if I thought his wife needed to hear it, I could wake her up. I saw smoke coming out of the wood stove in his workshop, so I knocked on the door before entering. He saw the scratches on my neck and the bruise on my cheek. I explained to him what had happened. I told him about the accident. That Mari had taken the worst part, but that we had to talk. I think he assumed I was referring to the accident, so he woke up my mother-in-law to hear what I had to say to her. We sat in the kitchen while I explained to him how when taking a curve a car that was driving on the opposite side had swerved into our lane. How the vehicle was heavier and had four-wheel drive. I managed to stay on the road until we hit a guardrail. The passenger side door was hooked into one of the vertical beams mounted on the concrete. Even with the side airbags, Mari took a heavy hit. I had many injuries, but I told them that I was stable and that I was hoping for a full recovery. They both cried when they learned that their daughter had suffered, but that he was still by his side so that he would love them. As soon as they hinted that they would be around as long as it took to help me take care of Mari, that's when I stopped them. I explained to them that the accident was not the only thing that had happened and that I wanted to tell them. They seemed confused when I explained that I had gotten up that morning and texted to go to the snow to make sure my wife was okay. I told them that I had seen their daughter with a guy I had never seen before and that I unconsciously threw myself at him to hit him over and over again. They were both shocked. Then I told them I was in the hospital room and explained that I had always wanted them to be a part of the girl's life. So I hoped they could remain friends with me. I told them that my parents were taking care of them at the time, but that I would divorce his daughter because when he had broken our vows she was no longer my wife. I was leaving his house and going to my father's house to tell the children about I was also going to tell them that we were separating and that we would no longer be together. He wasn't going to tell them that his mother was unfaithful. I told my ex-in-laws that, although right now I hated that things ended the way they did, I could at least say that it wasn't me who destroyed our marriage and my life. They tried to tell me that I was rushing, that she had made a mistake and the typical lame excuses. I just smiled and told them that I would have loved to have been in-laws for the most years. When I got to my father's house, of course I had a lot of things to vent about. I walked in through the kitchen where I found my father having a cup of coffee. The only thing he knew was that I must be on a big ship in the Caribbean. He got up and asked me what I was doing there. I grabbed him, hugged him, and cried like a child. It was the kind of thing that he really wanted to know what was going on. But he felt he should let me cry before he intruded. He took me to the study and sat me on the couch to go get my mother. We both asked him to have a coffee first. But she knew that if she was there alone so early, she had something bad to tell them. First I explained to him about Mari's deception. That I had caught her and that she had left Bika's house. Then I explained to them about the accident, which had been quite serious. I told them about Mari's injuries and explained that I had told her parents only an hour before she could go see them. Both of my parents were stunned. In the end, my mother asked me what I was going to do. They both cried when I told them that the only option left was to divorce Mari and be the best father I could be to my children. As I finished the conversation, I heard my daughter Carrie screaming and ran down the stairs towards me. That also woke up my son, who was also downstairs a few minutes ago. It had been so long since I had seen them that I dedicated myself to hugging them. Happy to see you at last. It took them a while to realize that it had scratches. I told them about the accident and that his mother was in the hospital but that she was going to get well. I told them that Mari's parents would pick them up so I could take them to see their mother. And there I left it. I spent a day playing and talking with my kids. Also taking a nap. We laughed and those things made me want to live. Until that moment, if I'm honest, I didn't have half the desire to move on. But they are worth living for. Protect and cherish them. My wife's phone was destroyed in the accident, so I hadn't responded to anyone for days. That early night I started getting messages from my mother's phone and I knew they had to be from Mari. I ignored them, but they continued sporadically throughout the night. I had to turn off the notifications. The next day, I spoke with 3 law firms to file for divorce. I can't say I wanted or needed a legal divorce, but that would divide the assets and determine the custody of our children. What she does and with whom she does it no longer concerns me. I have met with 2 and I like the last lawyer quite a bit. In any case, it would have eliminated 3 of the best legal sources from its list of candidates. And this is a victory for me. Custody is my main goal right now. I'm not going for full custody and I wouldn't want it if I could get it. They need their mother in their lives. But because he did what he did, he can't be a part of my life again. An intermediary can drop off children on time whenever they need to be where they need to be. There is no reason in this world for me to say another word to him. Obviously, I never met her, so why would I keep interacting with a stranger? I'm back at work next week from what would have been our cruise. I didn't tell anyone at work that we didn't go, or anything about the accident. And of course they will see me driving the rental car and ask me if I have a new car. I'm not sure if I have to explain things to HR. But I don't want my personal issues to come to light. I already feel humiliated without the news leaking. Divorce is a necessity sometimes, but it always represents a failure. And I no longer want to be the anchor of a ship that has already sunk. And for those who have insisted and with good reason to do a checkup for diseases, well, yes, I have had a complete exam that came out clean, thank God. Even that has served to make me feel quite uncomfortable knowing that I did nothing wrong. I suppose by then Mari would have already left the hospital. Her parents didn't even try to bring her home. Anyway, they couldn't have contacted me because of the constant messages from Mari that I didn't read. As soon as I can file the divorce papers and serve her, I can end up with the biggest mistake of my life. His current actions invalidated all that time. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't do it again now. I would choose a life with someone else, anyone else who was truly faithful and loyal. His greatest asset is what he intentionally threw away. The ability to be trustworthy, to have someone to call yours, to be completely alone. That's what I'll miss. But I know that all that is a lie and that I meant nothing to her. People faint over a beautiful lie and repel an ugly truth. I'm not one of those people. A lot of people wanted to know the dirty details of who my wife had slept with. Why and how long had it been like this? I'm sorry I don't have that information to share, but I really don't want to know. There is no excuse to deceive someone. Beyond that, when you've made a life bond that you've sworn to uphold and you make the decision to have the other person screw it up, you're vile. I wish I had never met him and taken a chance on someone else, on anyone else. She has no right to give me a life and then take it away from me against my will. The man he was before his betrayal will never exist again. The woman she was never existed. And the life I had was a ruined facade of what no one wants to live in. Update. Not only do I not know where I have to start, but I don't even know what to say when I do. I guess the first thing I have to tell everyone is that I got a very good lawyer. Your law firm is generally very good at representing men in divorce cases in my area. Instead of passing my case on to someone else on the legal team, she took it on as her own. Everyone in the firm has been quite kind to me and has been supportive. I can tell that they don't just care about getting their advance and payment. Nadia, my attorney, has gone above and beyond to help me with my well-being and sanity. After accepting my case, we reviewed the usual forms I had to fill out. I listed the property and all of my bank account information, as well as rough estimates of what Mari and I earned. After I explained about the accident and what I saw just before it happened, he asked me if I had been tested for STDs. I explained that yes, and that everything had gone normally. Then he asked me if I had documented the infidelity with photos or videos. I told him that at that time I hadn't thought rationally enough to do so. He called a private investigator from his company and arranged a meeting between him and me the next day. I live in a state of guilt, so even though I knew Mari had been unfaithful to me, I needed real evidence for the divorce to go in my favor. We put one of her employees as an intermediary so that Mari's father and I could communicate, and we organized the deliveries. I asked for his help in notifying my future ex-father-in-law that my ex could have stayed with the kids from the weekend and the following week. No one asked me if I had arranged therapy for me and my children. I explained that I had my first appointment with the therapist last week, but since I hadn't told the kids yet, I was putting it off. He told me that as soon as he felt that he needed professional attention, I should tell him. He told me that he had several therapists he could recommend. He expressed what seemed to be sincere condolences for having to go through everything that had happened and will pass. I don't like lawyers, but I think I've found one with soul. He gave me a list of things to pick up and do before we went to our next meeting. Many of the instructions were identical to the advice of many of the users who posted here. So when he told me to stop by the pharmacy to buy 2 DNA kits, I didn't think of anything. I knew it was the usual protocol. When I got home that night with the kids, I did the cheek swabs for me and them, sealed them all and mailed the kits. 2 days later it was Friday, and that same morning they left the children with their grandparents for the weekend. I went to work and came back for lunch when I received an email notification from my personal account. I saw that there were 2 lab emails, so I waited to get to my computer and see them. Once at my table, I opened the first link. The results indicated that my son Michael was indeed my son. I opened the other email and clicked on the link. I read what it said. I read it again. I couldn't really say anything. I just started shaking my head. I knew I had to get out of the office before I collapsed. I managed to screenshot both results and email them as photo files. I went to my car and started crying when I realized that my daughter Carrie was in fact not my daughter. I couldn't imagine that this would hurt me even more, like having an arm cut off that my daughter lost. Honestly, I felt that my soul had been taken from me. I don't know how to describe it. I didn't know who to call. I sat there crying and wishing like crazy that I could wake up from my nightmare. I downloaded the files from my email account and sent the photos to my lawyer. After 20 seconds, no one called asking where he was. I answered him at work. That was the only thing I managed to say. He told me to stay there and that someone from the firm would arrive in a few minutes. I ended the call and opened the door. I started vomiting uncontrollably until I vomited dry. When I managed to stop vomiting and feeling dizzy, one of the paralegals came to pick me up. He took me to the office, and as soon as no one finished with one of his clients, they made me go to his office. The first thing he told me was that sometimes tests go wrong. He told me that he understood that I was upset and that I had every right to be, but he insisted that we had to get tested again. This had to be at a local lab for Carrie and me to make sure nothing was contaminated. I couldn't believe what was happening. Even after catching Mari cheating on me, I assumed that the children's DNA test was a formality. I would never have thought that my wife was unfaithful, but to imagine that she was capable of having another man's baby if it was true. Who the hell did I marry? I couldn't even face Mari even if I wanted to. She had no concrete evidence, but she couldn't imagine that if the results confirmed what we suspected, she and I would never have that conversation.
Don't forget to subscribe and like it. Leave your comment in the section below and subscribe, it's free.